Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Literatur zur Zeit here at the King Georg Club. It's the 15th year of Literatur zur Zeit. We say thank you to the Kulturamt for a little funding and the Buchbundhandlung for supporting us with a book table. And welcome to Cynthia Cruz, who is our guest tonight. Hello, Cynthia. So many people, that's great. It's the first time we do this in English here completely. Just to inform you, if my English is bad, I'm sorry. Cynthia is going to read from a passage, and we will talk about her book, The Melancholia of Class, a manifesto for the working class. I think already the title we could talk about for a while, but there is so much more, I promise. The book has not been translated into German yet, so the reading and also the talk, as we announced it, will be in English. There was a text translated into German about why Cynthia started to work on that book, and with lots of thoughts that went in it lately in an issue of the magazine Texte zur Kunst, for your interest. That issue, as far as I understood, was under the main theme mourning, Trauer, which is discussed in the book as well. And that text by Cynthia that I mentioned is also online. You can read it there for free. By the way, Cynthia, is there a German translation of The Melancholia of Class in the making? Because I saw there is a Spanish one, is that right? Italian. Italian. Nothing at the horizon, so maybe after this reading, because we also stream it, there will be also a recording of this and we can show it to German publishers. I think it's worth it. Today, I guess you came from Berlin to Cologne. That's good for us because we couldn't have afford to fly you in from the United States. But you live in Berlin, is that right? So what brought you there in the first place?
Yes, the
microphone. Hello.
Yes, so I live in Berlin. My mother is German, and I was actually born in Wiesbaden, but I didn't get my citizenship until October. I just got it. So I was waiting until I got my citizenship to move here. I've been coming to Germany like twice a year. For 2 or 3 months at a time. So I basically was living here half the time, but finally left the US forever.
Yeah.
I'm here now.
So mainly you grew up, I learned from your book, in California.
Yeah, I grew up in Northern California, in Santa Cruz County. Any people from Santa Cruz? No.
And then later you shifted from coast to coast and lived in New York.
Yeah, it's a long story I could write a lot about, but...
Please tell me.
No.
It's also mentioned in the book,
yeah,
right?
Maybe, yeah. So one of the main things was that I'd gone to a private women's college.
Yeah.
I took out in a lot of money in loans, and I went to the school, and that's where I really began to experience a lot of the things that I wrote about. And so I thought if I just left and went to the other coast, things would be easier, which is delusional, but I did it anyway.
So you didn't only leave a place, you left somewhat your origins, your class also. This is what the book is about, and this is also what this shift is about, right? So this is also a part of the book.
Yeah. Although, it's obviously it's complicated, but yeah.
Maybe I do a short introduction about what you have done already, who you are, what to do, and you can correct me anytime if something is wrong. Cynthia Cruz is an American poet, author of several poetry collections, and author of works of cultural criticism too. She teaches or taught. She taught classes in the graduate writing program at Columbia University. She earned her Bachelor of Arts at Mills College. She earned her Master of Fine Arts at Sarah Lawrence College, an MFA in Art, Writing and Criticism at the School of Visual Arts, and an MA in German Language and Literature at Rutgers University New Brunswick. Anyway, how's your German?
It's at like a B2 level. It's not great. It's okay though.
Cynthia Cruz is currently pursuing her PhD in philosophy at the European Graduate School. Her research centers on Hegel. Is that
It's true, yes.
Sounds complicated, but interesting.
That's
Cruz
good.
is editor with the visual artist Stephen Page of the interdisciplinary journal Schlag magazine. What kind of magazine is that?
It's like a zine, but it's online.
What is it?
You want more than
what
that?
Is it
I'm sorry,
what is
I'm
it
sorry.
about? A bit more.
So yeah, so a
I'm
little,
curious.
Yeah. So a little PS. I didn't sleep last night at all, so I'm a little
Why?
wonky. We caught the 5:20 a.m. train, and sometimes I can't sleep. I'm worried I'm going to miss the alarm. Anyway, yeah. So we have artwork in there, and we have poems and some essays, but it's sporadic. It's not. I think it's been a year now, but we have one coming soon.
I also learned when we were at the restaurant that all your stuff from New York is right now on the way
On
to
the way,
Berlin. Right?
yes, yeah.
It's traveling.
Hopefully it makes it.
Cynthia Cruz's seventh collection of poems, Hotel Oblivion, was published in February 2022. Why are you laughing?
Because it's not a funny title, but when I hear you say it, it sounds funny.
I'm sorry.
No, not like that. I just mean it's a very serious title.
Here's a summary of Hotel Oblivion I found, and I would like to quote.
Okay, yes.
There's a reason for it. A specter haunting the edges of society, because neoliberalism insists there are no social classes, thus there is no working class. The main subject of Hotel Oblivion, a working class subject, does not exist. With no access to a past, she has no home, no history, no memory, and yet, despite all this, she will not assimilate. And now that I read, because I prepared for this night, and I read before, so that's why I invited you. And now that I read it again, The Melancholia of Class, a manifesto for the working class, which was originally published before Hotel Oblivion in 2021. I assume this description of this ghostly subject is already maybe an apt description of the narrator of The Melancholia of Class. Would you agree?
Right, yes.
And is that you?
I feel like I have to ask you to read the description again, but that's ridiculous because I wrote it.
Yeah, but the subject of The Melancholia of Class.
Yeah, I think it's
kind of a ghost.
Yeah, kind of a ghost maybe, yeah. Yes.
So maybe a word to the form of The Melancholia of Class. A manifesto for the working class is a collection of essays. Each of these essays deals with certain artists or pieces of art, such as songs and movies, singers and film directors, and how they are connected to class and also to classism, for example, by the reception through the eyes of the middle class. So how did you come to write this book in the first place? And as I mentioned, you write poems, you write literature, and I think this book is a mixture of a really personal approach and very analytic parts. How did you approach writing it? And when was the initial moment you thought you have to write about your origins in the working class?
I think it started, I had been asked by the Poetry Society, Poetry Foundation, I told you I'm tired, to write a series of 5 essays online, and I could write about anything. And I had, I think that, because it was a while ago, I think it was 2019, I'd been listening to Sparkle Horse, the band, which is really just Mark Linkous, the singer, and I was obsessed. We were talking at dinner about playing the same album over and over, and I would do that over and over. But I think there's just a moment when I realized that he, and then also Jason Molina, who I really, really loved from Songs Ohio, also they the music is saturated in melancholia. It's everywhere. But so were their lives, and both of them actually admitted in interviews or said in interviews that they suffered from depression. And I thought that there was something about that, and I wasn't quite sure what I was, but I knew that there was something, a connection. And I think especially with Mark Linkous, I saw that there was something. And so I pitched that I would write an essay on the Melancholia of Class about Mark Linkous. And I thought for sure they would say no. I mean, it's insane, right? And he said yes. So I wrote it. And then as I wrote that essay, because I had to do 5 essays, I think, I just kept exploring it. And I ended up writing also about Frank Stanford. Honestly, I don't remember, but a bunch of different people. And after I did that, then I started, because the way it works for me is when I start writing, it's like a machine. So I have a question, and I had a lot of questions, and I wrote about it in the book, but I had all these questions about class, and I couldn't understand, and there was nowhere to go. And so writing is a machine through which I tried to get closer to the answer. And that's what I did with this. And by the time I was done with the 5 essays, I thought, wait, this is bigger than this. And I started to realize how much of my own, I know that my life has been drenched in melancholia. This is true, but I always thought it was just me personally, and then I started realizing that it wasn't the case through writing these essays.
But was it difficult to write this personal passages? Did you have to step over a threshold to do it?
I think what was the hardest thing was that as I started writing it, then my life started to change, only because I started to see the world differently. And then all of a sudden I started thinking back, right, retrospectively about when I was like 5 years old or 8 years old or 3rd grade or 6 months ago or whatever, and everything was different. And I knew that once that happened, it could never be put back together again. And I also knew that these were questions I had to answer, but it was so this is
burning bridges, you said.
Oh, right? Yeah, it was burning bridges, but it was also burning bridges. So it's burning bridges to the middle class world, but it was also burning bridges to all the people I know who are from working class backgrounds who assimilated. So they don't want me to talk about this because it's this thing.
Yeah, I think one of the crucial points, I think it's a very complex thing. And I think I also have the feeling, and you already mentioned it when we were talking before the reading, that maybe each essay, you talked about one specific essay, it could have been longer. And maybe you could have written much more about every single artist or every single piece of art or every complex in the book. Every essay could have been a book for itself, maybe. And one of the crucial points is that you come from a place, or your origins officially don't exist, because you come from a working class, and from the working class in a neoliberalism, it says it's a classless society. So if you burn a bridge, then you burn a bridge to nowhere, and if you shift from one coast to the other, you leave a place that doesn't exist. And I think that's what's meant with a ghost, in the beginning, the spectre that haunts you, because on the other side you find yourself that it does exist. And you have it with you, like, I don't know, like, it's like a ghost with you, your working class origins. They're always there when you enter the middle class milieu. So did you have to enter this to write about your origins in the working class? Did you first have to study, to write poems, to publish literature, and be in cultural institutions to realize I am from the working class and it does exist? Or where did it start? Where did you realize that you are?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not, so my, from the working class, I mean, obviously my My father was a field worker. He's a Mexican field worker. I mean, that's not even working class. It's no class, really. It's nothing.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're working class. So it's interesting because that was never not clear. What was difficult is that in the United States, there is no, there's an idea, and this is what I think you're alluding to, that there is no working class. There are no classes in America. This is what I've been told. And so if you're a maid or a waitress or, whatever, you have $600,000 in student loans, for example, then it's your own fault. And this is the way that works. So, I mean, for me, I just thought that I was in therapy for many, many years and tried all kinds of different things, thinking it was my fault, because it's impossible to live in a culture and not absorb everything in the culture. I mean, it's like living... it's like a fish in water, right? So I just believed it all until I think the final thing was, I think I have 8 books of poems or something like this. And then 2 books of critical essays, and I won awards, and I published in the Paris Review and the New Yorker and things like this. And I cannot get a full-time teaching job for the life of me. And after a while, I started to realize that there were no people from working class backgrounds with full-time teaching jobs in any of the MFA programs. And I realized it wasn't my fault. And, I'm not saying it's deliberate. It's actually, it's systemic. It's the system. It's the way that it works, right? I mean, we live in a capitalist culture, right? And so it's about people who, own, and then it's the workers. And so it's much larger than that, right? It's not just one person or something. But so I had all the information, I just didn't have the concepts and language. And I think working through those essays got me to start putting the pieces together. And then, like I said, once I got there, I couldn't go back. And it's just kind of getting worse.
So it's some kind of research about yourself also?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying. Right, because we already have the information. Like, I already knew all this stuff about myself. I just, the beliefs that I'd absorbed from the culture sort of, right. So the reason my dad couldn't get a job is because he was inept. This is what the culture says, but that's not true, right? And at a certain point, when I realized this thing about the teaching, inability for me to get a teaching job, I started to look back, like I said, and put the pieces together. So it's not, if that makes sense. I had the information, it's just that all of a sudden I had this thing that changed everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a very interesting
myself.
story in the book when you said you celebrated that you ended high school. And there was some kind of party because something was finished.
Yeah.
Later you learned that all the other students from high school were already preparing for college.
Right, yeah.
So, and you were not supposed to go to college?
Yeah, I mean...
Is that one part of...
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, right, is that, so it's not like I'm sure I assume many of you can relate to this, but it isn't that my parents said you can't go to college. My parents didn't go to college. My father and mother didn't finish high school, right? And so the idea of college wasn't a concept that they knew. It was not an idea they were familiar with. So, so again, it's not that they said you can't go to college. It didn't occur to them that we could go to college. And this is the way it works. So they weren't friends with people who had kids who were going to go to college. And this is, yeah.
So I think one thing I learned from the book